Welcome to this episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. I'm Aric.
And I'm Angie.
We are married with a ton of kids.
We have 6 kids total. He has 3 and I have 3.
My name's Hallie and I love riding horses.
I'm Lexi and I love agriculture.
My name's Carter and I love eating.
My name's Chase and I love lifting weights.
My name's Summer and I love spending my parents' money.
I'm Dane and I love baseball.
Our show is about our blended, blessed, and always a mess life. And our hope is if you find yourself in the same situation we are in, that by sharing our story, all the fun and all the mess, the challenges we are experiencing, it will give you some inspirations, laughs, and community, knowing you are not alone in this mess.
We appreciate you spending time with us. Let's dive in.
This episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess is sponsored by the second book in HP's legacy children's book series called Are You With Me? In this story, a mama bird has to make a big choice to fly towards her fears or stay in her warm, comfortable nest. As parents, we know this world can be a scary place for our kids. Bravery is a gift we can help them choose. Are You With Me? Is a beautiful story based upon the author's real-life experiences. It's a great way to start a conversation with children about being curious and brave. Pre-order Are You With Me on our Blended, Blessed, Always a Mess website today. Books ship out in mid-December.
Welcome to this week's episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. And I am excited because for me, I am getting to interview one of my longtime friends and coworkers, Josh Ryan, Josh, how long have we worked together now?
13 years.
13 or 14?
Yeah,
13.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of things together. So
Yes.
at our job, Josh and myself are both on the number one radio station in mid-Missouri, today's Best Country, Clear 99. He's on from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'm on from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. I also help to run our marketing agency, and Josh is the creative services director of that agency. And so we work on a lot of projects together.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
A lot of creativity that happens between Josh and myself. We have long been told that we should have our own show together, although I don't know that anyone's ready for that.
So this is as close as we're going to get.
This is as close as we're going to get to
That's
that.
fine. It's totally fine.
But the reason that Josh is on today is because he can very much relate to the Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess podcast in the fact that, one, when he met his wife, she already had a son, and he has been a father to that young man who is serving our country these days for a lot of years. And then just a couple of years back, his middle child was diagnosed with cancer, and that's been a couple of year journey that we're going to talk about today and the grief process that goes along with that. So Josh, welcome. We are glad to have you. And if you would tell us a little bit about you and your family, we'll get started.
Yeah, cool. So like you, I'm a dad to multiple kiddos. Coy is, 21 now, which is crazy. Our daughter Brooklyn is 17, and then we have a little one, Avery, who's 6. But you mentioned Brooklyn.
Hey, I remember when you had Avery. It seemed like you guys, that was on purpose.
Yeah, 17 to 6 is quite the gap. So I always joke with everyone that we have 21, 17, and oops. Oops is pretty cute, so we'll keep her around. No, but dad of 3, sports, kids. I mean, life goes at, the speed of everything. So in August of 22, Brooklyn got diagnosed with B-cell lymphoblastic lymphoma, which is cancer in her bone marrow. She had been really sick that summer, and she played a lot of softball. So she's a catcher. Catchers go through a lot. They sweat. They get beat up. Brooklyn used to lose about 10 pounds every year during the summer, and then she would gain it back in the winter because she was, sweating so much in the summertime. But in 2022, she lost almost 40 pounds in about 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And we knew after she got to like the 20-pound mark and it still wasn't stopping, we knew something was really, really wrong. And Brooklyn made it difficult to see that it was wrong because she was still playing ball at such a high level. You're like, well, there's no way something's not right. She's just, not eating enough. Or we had tests run. They said maybe she's anemic. Maybe her body's just starting to reject, certain foods she used to like, whatever. And so we get to August and we had some testing done, and they had told us if Brooklyn gets really sick in the next couple weeks and starts throwing up like violently or anything like that, take her to the ER. And so on August 22nd, 22, I get a phone call. I'm here at the radio station. My wife calls. She's like, hey, Brooklyn's really sick. I'm taking her and Avery to the ER. do you want to go? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So I rushed home. We all went as a family. And I remember, it's funny, the little stuff you remember now. But I remember driving, and Brooklyn will tell you this. Lauren was like, babe, you don't have to drive so fast. Like, everything's fine. And I wanted to believe that. Like, I really wanted to believe that. But in my spirit, I could just feel like something is really, really wrong. Like, I knew something was wrong.
You know, Angie talks about that all the time, like that mother's intuition. She's like soul connected to her kiddos because she grew them in her belly. And so she always says she could just tell on things like that. And for the listener that's joining us, yes, no, Angie is not with us today. And so half of everyone just turned off, Josh, just so you know. Whenever I have a podcast with somebody else, they only want to hear Angie.
Angie's not there?
So I tried to avoid mentioning that until now. But hopefully you want to hear more about Josh and his
as your
family
guest,
story.
I'll hang out. Yeah.
And so I remember like yesterday, and Josh and I, we work together every day. Again, I come on the radio right after him. So we talk and we spend a lot of time together. And so such a crazy moment in your life.
Yeah.
And I remember you telling this next part of the story. You've told to me multiple times. And it's that, you know, we talk about our worst parents' nightmare when we got the call about Hallie being shot.
Yeah.
This was the other worst parents' nightmare when you are at the hospital. So if you want to dive back in.
Yeah, so we get there and it's taken forever. We get to like the 2-hour mark. And keep in mind, like I have Avery, right? And Avery's 4 at the time. So it's me and a 4-year-old just sitting in a waiting room at Children's Hospital. And we get to like the 2.5-hour mark and Avery's getting, you know, antsy and bored. And she's like, where's Sissy? Where's Mom? I'm like, I don't know, babe. So I took her for a drive. Like we went to go drive around for a while just to keep her occupied.
Sure.
And she was into Madagascar at the time, and we had a DVD player in the back. So I was like, you know what? Movie time. She's watching a movie, and then I get a phone call like 4 hours after we got there from Lauren. And to her credit, and you'll understand this in a second, she played it well because she called me and she's like, hey, babe, you have to come back here before we leave and sign some stuff, and then we can go. And we had the 4 of us had planned on going out to lunch after Brooklyn. You know, they figured out whatever, ran the test. We were going to go to lunch and have an afternoon together as family. And oof, thank goodness, right? Well, so I go, okay, I'll come back in a second. So I grab Avery. We start to walk back into where Brooklyn is at in the ER. And as we came around this one corner, we turned right. And I look up and there's like 5 or 6 doctors standing in there. Brooklyn's face was contorted to the point that like I'll never forget what her face looked like because it was like nothing I had ever seen as her dad. It just in pain and sobbing. Her eyes were swollen.
Are you 14 or 15 at this time?
She was 15.
15. Okay.
Yeah, 15. So I remember looking at my wife who was on oxygen. So she had like a child life specialist in the room giving her oxygen because she about passed out. They had told them what they found and didn't realize that I was there with Avery. Mm-hmm. And so Lauren and Brooklyn got that news without me in the room. And then they had to obviously tell me. And so I remember walking in and Dr. Batch, who I now just love to death, I remember her looking at me and I didn't even know who she was at the time. She's like, sir, would you like to sit down? And, you know, I'm a hockey player, so I'm always a big tough guy. Like, no, I'm good. I'll stand. Thank you. And she's like, no, you should really sit down. And that's when I knew like, okay, I'm about to get some really terrible news. So I sat there and I kind of just took a breath and I was like, okay, well, what are we dealing with here? Remember saying that, like, what are we dealing with here? And Dr. Batch looked at me and she said, well, after the scans we ran, Brooklyn is going to either have a diagnosis of lymphoma or leukemia. So, man, you talk about in those moments, like everything freezes, right? Like everything, you know, Eric, I mean, you and Angie have been through this. Like you hear something that traumatic, that horrific, you just stop. Like everything goes. And I just sort of sat there and the next thing out of my mouth, I remember looking right at Dr. Batch and I said, well, what do we do now? Because I knew, I mean, you and I have done how many radiothons for Children's Hospital over the years? 10, 12?
Yeah.
You and I have been on together. Next? Yeah. So I knew we were in the right place, but I'm not going to lie. Like I was terrified, and not to get, you know, super personal and graphic, but I mean, Brooklyn is squeezing Lauren's hand, squeezing my hand and literally screaming like, I don't want to, Daddy, I don't want to die. I mean, that hits you everywhere all at once. And I just remember trying to breathe, just like, okay, I've got to keep it together because my wife was inconsolable. Brooklyn obviously was just terrified. And so they left the room. They gave us a minute, and long story longer, we had 8 days in the hospital. And Eric, this is one of the parts I like telling of the story. Our 3rd night in the hospital, I remember Brooklyn just wanted to go home, obviously, because I mean, this was not the week we asked for. This was not the news we asked for.
Sure.
And I remember Brooklyn saying, Mom, Dad, like, I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to do this. Knowing that she was going to have to go through chemotherapy and knowing what we were after now and how they were going to attack it. And I give my wife so much credit for this. She got on Brooklyn's bed and I was sitting at the end of it, and she looked Brooklyn right in the face. And she goes, honey, and she was tearing up, but she's like, honey, it doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what I want or what Dad wants. We have got to do this because there is no other option. The option's to keep you alive and the option's for you to fight. And that's it. And man,
that's what you guys have been doing.
That's it. 28, 29 months now. Yeah, here we go. And dude, I wouldn't wish this on anybody, Aric. I really wouldn't. I've been angry and bitter, and I know you and Angie can relate to a lot of the emotions I'm going to bring up. But I was super angry, man. Like I was yelling at God. I would wake up at 4 a.m. in that hospital because we stayed the whole week. I mean, we stayed.
Yeah.
And, dude, I remember walking to the parking garage at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and just unloading, angry, like furious. Brooklyn doesn't, do bad things. She doesn't drink. She doesn't do drugs. She's not in relationships. She's just a pure kid who all she ever wanted to do was make her parents happy and be good to her siblings and get good grades and play
softball.
And I'm like,
yeah.
So, that journey for her had to end eventually. Credit to her. She fought through playing softball for another year and a half.
She did. She tried really hard to do
she'd
it
go out and
during
catch an inning or two. She'd look just like herself, but then she'd get really sick in the dugout. So eventually they told us she had to quit playing. So that was really hard. Teenage girl cutting all her hair off, shaving her hair. That was a day. I remember her calling me at work and she's like, Dad, I'm ready. I'm probably not ever going to be ready again, but today's the day. Because we let that up to her. It's like, hey, you take the hair when you're ready. And so I remember going home that day and she was sitting in a chair, Mom with the clippers, ready to go. She's like, I'm probably not ever going to be ready for this again, Dad, but today I'm ready. I'm like, and that was a God thing. I mean, we know that was God, 100% giving her the courage to do that. After all of it, man, like to finally be to the point where we're going to ring that bell here in a few days.
So that was my next question. What's next? I know what's next, but tell our listeners what's coming up in the next few days. We're less than a week away from the good news, and that is...
Yeah, she's going to ring that bell. She's going to end her treatment and be done. It's not done. I mean, obviously, she's going to have to go in this first year every month. She'll get labs done to check numbers. And then year 2, she'll go every other month. That'll extrapolate out to year 5. And then once she hits year 5, she'll basically be at the point, Aric, like you and I are. She'll have the same chance of getting cancer that you and I would, even though she's already had it. So getting to that 5-year mark will be huge. But man, she's already finished up with chemo, and seeing her eat like a truck driver again is great. Like she wants all my favorite stuff. Like, dude, you have kids. I mean, they have dishes they like. And, Brooklyn for 2 years has gone through a lot of times where she's not hungry. I mean, she's been sick as a dog for imagine being sick every day of your life. Literally 5 days out of the week, she's felt
the emotional toll that takes on a teen. I mean, on an adult like you and I, Josh, but for a teenager like Brooklyn, it is crazy. So
I want to write a book, How to Raise a Teenager, and then in parentheses with cancer, because I don't think that there's anything like that. And brother, I would have taken any advice anybody had for me at the time of, you're raising a teenage girl, which is not easy.
Yeah,
now they have
already.
Now what do you do?
Throw in cancer.
Yeah.
Josh, I'm sure if you want to do that, you can. Josh is one of the most talented writers that I know. Bro. Obviously, I love reading my wife Angie's stuff, but Josh is incredible. As I said earlier, we work a lot of campaigns together for different clients. And so the talent level that he has is deep. And so I think as a resource for other parents, Josh, that would be so helpful.
I think it really would, man. Seriously. And I'm not saying I have the best advice or the greatest advice. And honestly, Aric, out of all of this, 2 things I'm taking, I love that Brooklyn found Christ. I love that she is Christ-centered now like she never was before.
That's awesome.
A lot of people will turn their back on God in moments like that and like, forget you. You didn't save me from this. You didn't stop this. She just latched on, which is great. And the other thing, man, is like, I hope it's a hopeful story for people. I hope people will hear that and be like, I laugh and people are like, oh my gosh. And Aric, you guys are still going through one of the most horrific things you could ever imagine going through. But, people ask you, I'm sure, you do it. How do you keep that? And it goes back to what I told my wife. Yeah. It goes back to what Lauren said, day 3 of the hospital. You don't have an option.
If Angie was on right now, she would tell you that. There's no option. We have other kids. So you have to get up and you have to keep moving forward, even though some days it doesn't feel very good.
No.
to move forward.
No.
So with all of that, just a couple of months after Brooklyn's diagnosis in August of 22 is when Hallie was shot and killed. And so Josh and I have gone through a lot of these things together. We have a lot of conversations. And so one of the things that Josh and I have talked about a lot, and this is just the kind of guy you are, you always feel bad for other people. You have constantly through this process been like, I shouldn't complain. This isn't as bad as what you and Angie are going through. Like my daughter's still here. But it is a massive grief, right? As we've talked about, you've got a teenage daughter who's missed most of high school. She lost
3
the
out of 4
sport.
years.
Yeah, lost the sport that she loved.
Yeah, on track to play college ball. And
yeah, isolated from friends.
Yeah.
They are different, but we all are going through times of loss and grief. And for your family, this has been a massive thing. And I want you to know I appreciate your friendship through it. You've prayed.
Oh, dude, you too, Aric. I mean, my
you've
God,
prayed
man.
for us and with us, and we try to do the same thing for you. And your story is great. That it has a happy ending for Brooklyn. We're super excited for you in that regard.
Well, let me say this real quick, Aric, for you and Angie too, because I have said that a lot. Like I'm glad that you brought that up. Like I have said that to you a lot. But if you think the two of you haven't given my wife and I strength, and I'm trying not to get super emotional, but
say, don't make me cry, dude. Don't do it. Don't do it.
But pushing us on our worst days, like you've talked to me on days when I may not have shown it, even though I'm terrible at hiding my emotions, as you well know, as one of my best friends. Like I wear them right here.
Yeah.
But you guys really, man, have the way you've been so open and vulnerable and honest about your situation does give people hope that are in our situation that, dude, I didn't know what else to do, Aric, other than put my head down as a dad and grind this out and figure out how to keep my family from shattering apart.
Yeah. So, that's where I want to, as a dad, I remember it happening and we come home from the hospital. Hallie's obviously not with us. And I've got a home full of kids and a wife that are just sobbing. And then especially, Angie cried herself to sleep for so long. And all I could think of is I have to keep this family above water. Like I have to captain this ship.
That's it.
And in full transparency, Angie was probably a better captain in life than me, right? When we met, we both did it together, but I really, I've always admired her strength and her graciousness with people and the way that our kids and other people gravitate to her, things that I fell in love with. And so then for me to have to lead this ship and I felt like I was just trying to keep things above water for a long period of time. And I know that you went through the same kind of thing. It is difficult on the different children in your home. It is difficult on a marriage. And let's talk about that a little bit, because at least you and Lauren had been married and together for many years when this happened. Angie and I were like 2.5 years into our relationship. So we've talked about that, I think on the podcast, definitely in counseling, that it was harder because we didn't have like 15 years of built-in
trust, chemistry,
all those
everything
things.
that comes with a decade and a half of being comfortable with someone.
Yeah. But that still didn't mean it was easy for you and Lauren or you and your kids. So talk to me a little bit about some of those, if there was any struggles you can remember off the top of your head, or how you handled certain situations. As you guys went through a grief process of your own.
Yeah. I think what stands out to me most, Aric, and my son said this about 3 months into Brooklyn's treatment, because at the time he's 19 years old, he's just joined the military, and he likes to go out with his buddies and have fun. And I remember him coming over one night, and Lauren and Brooklyn were in the hospital, and I was at the house with just Avery and myself, and then Coy came over. We had dinner and we were talking. And Coy's like, Dad, I don't feel like we should get to do anything fun, right? I don't think we should go here. I don't think we should go out with my friends. And honestly, I will just assume you and Angie have had that feeling too of like, why do I get to do this, right? Why do I get to go here? You didn't want to think about anything positive or happy. And man, that's a dangerous, dangerous road to be walking, because it's dark and it's lonely and it's sad. And you get these bursts of anger. Like, dude, I would get so angry at like, dude, our life's hard enough. Like, what are you doing? Like,
I had a guy, what I do think it is, Josh, though, I think obviously you and I know it's the devil that's working on us in those situations. And
1,000%.
And what I had a conversation with a buddy yesterday, the day before, who's reading a book, and he said, in the book, it's saying like, when you go inward, we hear so many times people go, I want to go inward.
Yeah.
Going inward is quite possibly the most dangerous place that you can go, because that's where all the scary thoughts and feelings and vibes are. And the book is saying to heal from great trauma is to go back outward into the world, because God has created us for relationship with him and with others.
Sure.
And I think when I reflect on it, when I see Angie at her happiest, she's going back she's taking buckets of water back to the other moms who've lost children, and helping them, or we're doing things as a family to honor Hallie. When we do those things, it seems like there's more joy involved. When Angie or myself have tended to go inward, I don't want to speak for her. Maybe she feels differently, but when I have gone inward, the results are not as good. I mean, I would just put it that way. I mean, I would be honest. I went through a 6-12 month period where I was angry because God had taken this perfect, what I thought, no family's perfect, but to me, it felt like this perfect family.
100%.
And now it was gone. And so I did. I drank too much for a while. I kept to myself. I got angry. I know I was angry with my kids.
Yeah.
And it was because I wasn't cultivating a relationship with God. I wasn't cultivating a relationship with other people well.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important that we notice those signs when we start to go really deep inward. A lot of times that is the devil. And I know you've had those struggles too.
Yeah. If you go too far inward, Aric, to your point, I think that you get to a point where hope gets lost, because you're not vibing with other people. You're not thinking about, how fun this dinner date will be, or you're not thinking about any of that. You're just focused on how difficult this is, how tough this is, why us, and people can say what they want, but unless they've been in your shoes, you and Angie, or our shoes,
you don't know.
You don't. And yeah, it's real easy to say poor us, but for me, it wasn't even poor us. It was just, why? Like, what did Brooklyn do? What did our family do? Those are the questions that you're not going to get an answer to, probably, at least as long as we walk this earth. I pray that we get an answer. I would love to know the why, but if we don't,
most of the time,
you're not going to get it. And so that's why I don't think you could spin your wheels and continue to dive deeper and deeper in, because you're losing yourself on the outside. And I'll say this for Brooklyn, and I'll say this for your family. Like, you can't let tragedy change who you are at your core. And that's what I'm most happy for Brooklyn, is that Brooklyn is very much Brooklyn, even more so now. Like, her best traits are louder. Her best traits are brighter. And I think this journey did that. So would she be that without it? Probably not. But in your situation too, the why is what bugs me. It's the why. What could you have done?
Yeah, ours was definitely very avoidable, right? This did not have to happen to Hallie. These were choices. Like Brooklyn, nothing happened there, right? That's just like, for some reason.
So the doctor said, they said cancer. One day it came on. They said they've never seen this type of cancer come on like that in a teenager, where it just went.
Yeah, it just
came on.
That why. Ours, it was clearly was a choices that were made. And so that's frustrating. And so you can get bogged down in the whys and the case of the shouldas, which are always bad.
Yeah.
And so it's
the what ifs too, right? What ifs?
Yeah.
What if this happens? What if the chain reaction mentality? What if this? What if this would have done? You drive yourself nuts. You will drive yourself nuts.
It's been great to have friends that know you and that recognize you. I know I have had times where I've had to say things to you, like, tell me, I can tell that you're not doing well. Talk to me. And you've done the same thing, man. Same thing for me. You have. And
well, you and I said this, Aric, and maybe you don't want me to share this with people, so take it out if you don't. But honest to God, you and I have said for the last 2.5 years, like, we share a very screwed up bond.
Yes.
But to be honest, brother, I'm thankful for the friendship we forged before all of this. And I think we've gotten a lot closer now. I mean, dude, I could just hug you some days, because you've been there for me on my worst days. And you and I know each other well enough to look at each other. I mean, you're right. You've walked in the studio. So I'm saying, I can
look at you and I'm like, what's going on?
You've walked in the studio some days. I'm like, I know what's wrong, dude. And it's wild when you know somebody like that, but I'm also eternally grateful.
we're both good huggers.
Yeah, that's true too.
So we get into a man bear hug. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, for sure. Some days you need that though.
All right. So glad to hear that Brooklyn rings the bell in the next week, and be continued prayers for your family
You too,
that
bud.
you could find some normalcy in that regard.
You too.
Let's just talk briefly about a couple other things today. And one of those is this podcast, before it became about grief, losing Hallie, was a blended family podcast.
Yeah.
And what was it like for you to raise a son, a young man that wasn't yours for so long? And now I've seen your guys bond and how much he loves and appreciates and respects you.
Yeah, he's awesome, man.
When he looks down on you.
He does, because he's 75 feet tall. Yeah.
Yeah, he's super tall, and you and I are not.
No, we're not. No,
what was that like for you?
Well, I started dating Lauren way back in the day. We've been together almost 20 years now. Coy was 2 at the time. His dad is not the best person. I'll just leave it at that. So he chose, not to be around, not to really care, just kind of up and left Lauren, my wife. And so when I started dating her, she had Coy and he was 2. And I remember my dad saying, he's like, son, if you're going to date this girl, you're going to have to be a father. But I remember him saying that, and I remember being like, yeah, he's right. And so you're going to get a good story. As soon as you started going down this path, I was like, oh, he's going to get one of me and Coy's favorite stories. So I took Coy mini golfing while Lauren worked one day. She was like, do you just want to hang out with him at my mom's? That's his grandma. Like, I was like, no, I'll take him. It'll be fine. We'll go somewhere. Which in hindsight, I laugh. I'm like, you just let me take your kid? Like, what kind of mom are you? But we laugh about that now. But we went to mini golf. And this is a true story. It's insane. We got to the last hole, and if you've ever played mini golf, at most places you get the hole in one on the last one, free games.
Yeah.
Right. Well, right before Coy, 2 years old, gets up to hit his little shot, a bird poops down the back of his neck.
Oh my gosh.
So he's lined up for the shot, and I'm looking at him, and then all of a sudden I just see, and I'm like, oh. So I'm like, hang on, bud. So I take him back to my car. Thankfully, I had an extra hockey jersey in my car. I clean him off. I throw on a big Blues jersey. So now he's walking around in like a tent shirt. He goes back and he hits the hole in one. And we win free games for the next time we go.
Oh my gosh.
And I just remember that bird pooping on him. And I'm like, well, this lady's never, ever going on a date with me again. Like, you took my kid out, you let a bird poop on him. But no, we went home and we have a really funny story out of it now. So
I'm actually impressed. I thought you were going to tell me that he threw like some massive fit.
Oh, no. No.
Oh.
He had no idea. He had no idea that had happened. He was just going to hit his little shot. And I was like, oh, hang on, bud. You got a little something on your neck there. And I mean, I'm looking up like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what we're going to do today. But we got through that. And over the years, man, yeah, Coy and I mean, obviously like any father-son bond, like you've had your tiffs and your fights and all of that stuff. But Coy and I always joke, we would not want to be on the opposite team from one another. We love each other to death. And yeah, 19 years later, like, calls me dad. And that's one thing too, Aric, I'd bring up, like, I never, and I'm sure you've talked about this, like, never push dad on the kid, never like, oh, you'll call me your dad. I just let him come around on it. And yeah, we couldn't be closer, man. And I always tell him he's one of the best gifts God has ever given me, because he's a great kid and treats his girlfriend really well, treats his sisters really well, treats his mom really, just a respectful,
hard worker. We know he's a hard worker. He works for one of our clients that we love. And so,
and serves our country too. So.
Yeah, it serves our country. I love what you said about we're on the same team. We'd want to be on the same team. That's what I work towards with Chase and with Summer. And, I don't ever push the dad with them because they have a great dad who's in the picture. But I always just say I'm their bonus dad. And I always claim them. Like, if I'm out and about, these are my kids.
That's it. Well,
these are my kids. They're not somebody, they're not. To me, I don't ever say to somebody, hey, these are my stepkids. I just say, this is my son and my daughter.
Yeah, and you care about outcomes with them. Like, that's what I've come to realize with Coy. Like, I care about results with him. I care about how things go down for him. How does he, secure his position in the Air Force? Is he doing good at his job? Like, I care about all that stuff. And yeah, man, they're your babies. And like you said, you claim them no matter what.
Well, is there anything that you would like to add about your guys' journey? Just tips, the baby that helped you get through?
Yeah,
the last couple of years that were so difficult. What are a couple of things that maybe you and Lauren did in your grief process and battling cancer?
I would say be honest with God. Be real honest.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're mad or upset. I mean, brother, I'll tell you. Like,
God's got big shoulders.
He
can handle it.
He does. I said some things to him that I'm not super proud of and not super happy about, but I apologized rather quickly. because I said, I need you. Like, I'm mad at you, but I need you.
It's like that true father-son relationship, but vertical.
It is.
Right?
100%. I just felt let down. I just felt very let down. I pray a hedge of protection over my family every night, and then this evil comes in. But you said it at the very beginning, Aric. It's the devil. You know that. And once you know that, he's going to come at you with everything. And you have to expect that. Like, expect to be down. Expect to feel like you're getting gut punched every morning. Brother, I prayed for months every morning that I would wake up and that this was all just a dream. I prayed that every night for months and months. Please don't let this be real. Please don't let this be real. And guess what? Wake up every day and it's still real. So I turned my prayer. Instead of praying that it wasn't real, I prayed for the strength to get through what was real. And I switched that about 90 days in. That's where I've stayed, man. I've just stayed in the Word. And my dad reminds me all the time that the more you get in the Word, the harder the devil's going to come at you. And
I would agree.
Brooklyn got really sick this year about 3 or 4 different times. She got real sick, like sicker than she did in her first year. And she'd get through it. And once she did, she was like, Dad, that's just the devil. He knows I'm getting close. She got super sick 2 weeks ago. Super sick. 103 fever. No reason for that. Like, she was doing fine. But she just said, she's like, Dad, the devil knows. He knows I'm going to get to this bell ringing, and he knows he's lost. And we were having shirts made for her bell ring that says, sorry, Satan, Jesus always wins.
Oh,
which is the truth. So, yeah, man, I would just say stay focused and expect it to be hard. Like, when you go through something tragic, like, okay, you're not coming out of it. You know that no one's going to pull the cover off me. It was all a big surprise joke. It's not. And when it's that kind of hard and that kind of traumatic, like, as you said at the beginning, man, and what we've tried to hang on to, there's no other option. Sometimes being strong is the only thing you can be. And that's where we're at. And I hope that's where you guys stay. And we'll keep going through our journeys together, buddy. I'm not going anywhere. So you're stuck with me.
I appreciate you.
You're stuck with me.
What is your youngest, Avery? She's 6. What does she want from Santa Claus?
She's asking for Taekwondo things because she's doing Taekwondo. She's been in that for like 4 months now. Okay. So I have a kindergartner that can throw punches, which is awesome. I want to play hockey, but Mom won't let that happen.
Josh does the greatest Santa Claus. He is quite the Santa Claus. So let me ask you.
I'm not sure that's true, Aric.
Well, Santa, I just want to know, have I been a good boy? What can I have for...
We'd better turn off the audio first. Oh no.
Josh and I have a lot of fun together on a daily basis.
We do,
He has about 8 million voices. And
you entertain all of them, buddy. So thank you for that.
I do. Him and we always say we should do our own show.
Should we tell him?
No, I don't know that we should. It's,
we just call it. It's called
Deadcast.
We think that would be kind of cool.
About all the weird dad things that we encounter.
Or it could be about how we screw up brisket, or
could be
our
about
terrible
grilling,
jokes,
things like that. But so we do a lot.
Look for us down the line, coming to a podcast store near you.
We should have had a list of sponsors.
We really don't.
At the end of this, like just a full radio broadcast.
Brought to you by.
Yeah, love it,
buddy. Thanks for having me on, man. This is really.
Hey, before we wrap, we always do something that we are grateful for, each of us. And so I didn't prep you for that.
That's okay.
So if you want me, you can go, or I can go first and give you a second to think. Totally up to you.
It's your podcast, so I'll let you go first, but I have it. I know what I'm going to say.
All right, well, go ahead then.
I said this on the air actually today on my show because I wanted to share with the listeners, where Brooklyn's at, because I haven't talked probably enough about it on air. I've kept it in the background. But honestly, what I'm most grateful for is the people around us. And I know that's a cheesy, simple answer, but there were times in the beginning of this, especially when I was getting help from people I'd never met, getting texts and phone calls from people you've never met. Hey, we got a letter from a church in Oregon from a bunch of people that were like, hey, read Brooklyn's story. Know that this tiny little church in Oregon's praying for you. Thankful that I got to see the side of humanity that I hope everyone gets to see at some point. I think that's what I'm grateful for is all the right people stepped up and supported me. My people here at Zimmer, man, you've been here a long time. Like, we say we're family, but like, you find out. And honestly, I'm thankful to have found out who my real friends are and who really cares, because I can move forward the rest of my life knowing who's got my back and maybe who wasn't there. And I'm thankful for that clarity.
I love that. I would just say that I am great. I'm grateful. The twins turned 16 this week. They both passed their driver's test.
With high scores, too, I heard.
High scores, I told you, yeah. high scores. 90s.
I probably don't think they're the best drivers ever now.
Upper 9. Well, Chase already did, okay? So there's that. But they did great. I don't want to spoil that for Angie, but it is timely. And Angie and I are going to talk about in one of our next podcasts, her journey of pregnancy with the twins, because it was a long process to have the twins, a lot of bed rest for her. Yeah. And so we are going to talk about what that journey was like for her. So I'm grateful for that. And I do ask, Lord, I prayed last night with Angie. I pray every day that God is just using his arms to wrap around all of our children as they drive, right? That's scary. Yeah. It's a whole nother level of scary when your kids are driving.
You think you're worried as a parent, let them start driving.
Yeah, so I've got Lexi and Carter. They've been driving for a while, but now you add the twins into it. And we had Hallie driving before, and now we've just got Dane to go. And then they're all
on the road.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Man, this has been great. Maybe next time Angie will come on, and then we'll get to
people will actually listen next time. We'll have you retell it, and they'll be like,
if anyone's made it this far, I'll be impressed. No.
Yeah, they would if Angie was on. That's just the deal.
That's why you picked today to have me. Like, let's have Josh
She has become the star of the show. And it started like she didn't even want to do the show because she'd never been on the radio. And now she is the star.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm just like the guy that kind of like...
You're her producer, yeah.
I'm the host / interviewer. I send it back and forth. So I had to bring you on, so I had some real talent today.
Oh, whatever. Get out of here. I appreciate it, man.
But all right. Well, Josh, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.
And really appreciate it. Tell Brooklyn that we will continue to pray for her, and we're so happy for her to get to ring the bell.
Praying for your family too, brother.
Thanks, buddy. You have a Merry Christmas.
You too, AB. Nice
guys, thank you.
By the way.
Thank you.
It's really
thank
full.
you for
a lot of sap in here. All right. I had to.
Hope everybody has a wonderful week, and God bless.
Thank you for listening to Blended Blessed and Always a Mess. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at blendedblessedalwaysamess.com.
Reach out to us on any of our social channels. We would love to hear from you. Have a great week.